Anna Leigh was doing that I want to talk about as like hey, you're in that moment, you're behind, you're trying to work yourself back into the game. She has this verbal cue where she's like, fight, Anna Leigh, fight,
Right. Yep.
want it, right?
Yep.
You've probably seen that, you probably had it. Why is she doing that?
Well, that works for her.
Yeah.
I actually commented on one of, a post I saw, when she played Salome, is she says fight a lot, but, she may change that, it's not a fight, because a fight, you defeat the enemy. It's that you're grateful for the opponent because they're making you better and bringing the best out of you. So it's more like a dance. It's a competition, but it's not a fight. So, but if that's what gets her fired up, like when her match finished after midnight when she played against Salome at that time, and so maybe it's like she's getting tired or whatever, and then it's rain delays, and so fight, gets. What I've noticed with her is
We're live, and I don't even know what to say. I did not expect you to show up wearing the sunglasses. Oh my god. Explain yourself.
These are the ones that my brother used. They're blue blockers, and they filter out the blues so that yellows pop.
Okay.
You see the ball better. So it worked during our 30,576 world record rally on Federer's birthday, August 6th of 2015. So my brother let me practice with them today. I had a couple of pairs I was trying. I have other ones that a sponsor sent in that I'll have before Saturday. It's indoors. It's darker there, so I'm not positive. We're doing a final practice the day before, so I can test out whether or not I'm going to use them. I mean, outside, I would definitely use them because as the sun becomes a factor, it's really great. Plus, less eye fatigue, and once you do something for over an hour straight without moving, everything looks like a blur. So this definitely helps with eye fatigue. What I'm realizing is the more that you plan, the more that you don't want to have a plan, because if you have a strategy or plan that makes you less like water or clay, you're less moldable. You want to have a general guide of what you're going to do, but every day is different. So every distraction is different. I mean, today was our best practice by far. To update everyone, we've been practicing every morning at 6:30 a.m., going for between an hour to 2.5, whatever it takes. And
that's why you're warmed up for our practices. I get it now.
Now you know. Although you were on fire at the end, though. I couldn't stop you at the end. You were unstoppable at the end.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those scenarios where I had to bail on the slow patient strategy and just start ripping
I kind of noticed that a little bit, but hey, you got to go with the flow and what works, right?
Yeah, that's called being clay, for sure.
Yeah, clay. Go with the flow. Water, yeah.
And we'll talk about that a little later on because that was the biggest takeaway from PPA Kansas CIty. But I want you to continue with your update on where you guys are and how practice is going.
Yeah, so I did a quote post the other day about the requisite for your dreams coming true, and one of them is having a purpose. And so, when you are set with an adversity, a challenge that seems impossible, when you have soreness, pain, fatigue, whatever, you need that purpose to fall back on. You need to have a purpose, and the purpose needs to be the right one. And so it can't just be a desire. because that's short lived, and you'll accomplish your short term goals, but not your dream goals. And I also posted about an acronym and method I came up with years ago to help set our world records, which is the word goals, which is, it's got to be grand. You got to be optimistic. You got to be accountable, held accountable, long-term and short-term. That spells goals. So, that those came in mind. But today I will say that hitting the same part of the ball 10,000 times is not advantageous, because today, unfortunately, we broke the ball. So so we had to use a different ball. So we were able to probably rally maybe 200 more times with a broken ball. But then once the hole cracked in 4 places, I guess, so when there's one crack, it's okay. But then if you keep hitting, so I happened to keep hitting the same crack, because when it hit my paddle, I felt the ball squish more. I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Normally you would step on that ball and use a different ball, but so I would say, we were prepared in our world record in 2021 on October 10th. We were prepared if the ball broke, that we knew we can get away with like 100 more, something like that, right? And the ball definitely wore out unbalancedly in that world record when it bounced. But it didn't crack, although we could have sworn it cracked because the ball was wobbling when it was bouncing. But that's just because, as you know, a pickleball, most of them are shiny plastic, and eventually they go to dull plastic, and then it goes to gritty plastic, and then it slows down, gets softer, and then starts to crack in that kind of that order if you use the ball long enough. So we started with a brand new ball on 2010, and we thought it broke. It didn't. And today I knew it was cracked. I was like, this ball just cracked. I have no idea, but it feels like every time I hit it on the crack, it barely moves. So sure enough, it was like crack, crack, crack. And then thing just like was just gone. So I don't even remember what happened, but it did cause a miss, because the ball just like flopped all over. Like, I hit a 3 on point of contact, which, by the way, is a huge focus of mine, is point of contact and ball path, which in real pickleball, when you're competing against someone, it's the same thing. What I realize is you can have one miss hit, but you have to quickly learn from the miss hit and not have a second one. But if you have 2 in a row, you're done. And so the good news is we didn't have 2 in a row today as far as miss hits at all. The ball broke on the first one, so we used a different ball. We started again. And on that one, it was really cool because I went through the most pain I've had so far, and then got through that, accepted the pain. But then there was the bees. So I prepared myself to be stung by a yellow jacket in the face. I figured if I was going to be body bagged in the face in a tournament, how would I react? Okay, well, it's going to be a lot of pain, and just deal with it. Who cares? And so there was bees. Then there was a butterfly. So I'm thinking, and then there was sun. And then finally the wind gust is what got us. There was a huge wind gust, and we were saying, okay, watch the wind. It's going to the right. It was going to my right, my brother's left. But the gust was so huge. I mean, these gusts that just come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So we said, wind, watch out. We hit 3-4 shots in the wind, but then it just blew somewhere. I don't know where it blew. And so my brother, lobbed it, just to give me more time. But the problem was his lob created me to hit an overhead. And I have not practiced hitting an overhead volley straight. Like, I don't know how to do that. So, but I don't care about that. Like, believe me, there will be no overheads on Saturday. So I guess my point is, we had a lot of saves, a couple of backhands, even though we don't want backhands, a lot of lunges, a lot of reaching forward, making sure space between your foot and the kitchen line or non-volley zone line. So it was really exciting because it was as real as it gets, but it was tougher because of wind, sun, and we still were able to sustain. So I'm just probably more excited than I've ever been about Saturday. I'm going to continue to take vitamin C because I just can't get sick for Saturday. Barring any major catastrophes, it's going right along as planned. And what I realize is, it's unplanned. It's going to be reality. It's going to be whatever it is. I'm excited about the opportunity. I'm certainly hoping that it inspires others. I know everyone at the park that we're at was aware that we were attempting the record. There was multiple people that came and left while we were there, and they were, cheering us on and stuff, which is really inspirational. And, I'm just hoping that once we set the record, people can say, oh, if these guys can accomplish something that's never been done, maybe I can accomplish something that's never been done. Or maybe I can accomplish my goal. Or maybe I could win an Olympic gold medal. Maybe I can win a pickleball tournament. Maybe I can win a tennis tournament. Maybe I could find my joy in the sport that I'm dedicated to. Whatever it is, I'm hoping that we inspire others to really, do something special and learn from it. And I'm hoping that we're leaving a legacy for my mom, and that is really important. She's been top of mind for me every day, and there's a lot of special things going on, and it's starting to become magical. And so I'm totally beat up. There's pain everywhere. My eyes are sore, whatever. It's like something so simple as a volley rally. How could you be in so much pain and fatigue and tiredness? I don't understand it, but I think it's because what I figured out, Al, and this is the scary part, is you think you could say, oh, let me bang out 1,000 at a time. Let me shortcut it. There is no 1,000 at a time. There is one and done. You hit one shot to the best of your ability that is going up and slightly to my left to go into my brother's hitting zone, so that you're leaving it for him to not make a mistake. So it's not just you, it's we. It's truly like you and I, let's say, playing doubles together. It's we. It's not my shot. It's not your shot. It's my shot sets up your shot, right? And your shot sets up my shot. It's really like doubles, even though we're opposite each other. And that's what's the cool thing, Al, is you have to put so much focus and concentration over a duration, but you have to reset it on every shot. And that's why there's no shortcuts. It's like you have to hit one shot successfully over 5,000 times together. If you're part of the other shot, over 10,000 times, you have to do something to not have a major mistake. And you have to learn from the minor mistakes, not failures, but minor mistakes that you have. So yeah, I had a 1.5 once or twice, and that was scary. Maybe 1.1. I'm not exactly sure if it was a 1 or a 1.5. And I was really focused on sweet spot hitting was probably my biggest focus. Breathing, grip relaxation. But the other epiphany I had today is it's not the same thing that you're focused on for the 2 hours or 3 hours or 4. The thing that you focus on is changing based on where your challenge is. So in the beginning, it's finding rhythm. In the middle, it's grip relaxation and finding circulation in your fingers. It then becomes, are you alert enough so that if the ball is not in your sweet spot, that you're moving? You can't just stand there, in cement? So are you alert to be able to be flexible on a ball that's not right in your sweet spot? And then it's, did I leave it to my brother's sweet spot? Did I do that well? And then finally, the second hour is just dealing with pain management. It's, how am I handling the pain and all of that?
So this leads into a couple really great points. The first one is a concept, not a concept, it's something that we talked about on one of our previous podcasts, which is really about belief, right? Faith, ultimately too, and purpose. Something that I haven't asked you, but I think would be great for everybody to know, including myself, is what instilled you initially to want and go inspire others? You did a few things before you became a coach, then you ended up becoming a coach, and then you went from tennis to pickleball. You did a little bit of things in between. You've been working with some fencers now. So, in that slew of all this time, what made you one day say, you know what, I want to be in coach because I want to help people be the best versions of themselves. I really want to inspire to the best of my ability. And then I'll get into what led you into world records.
Well, it was something my twin brother said to me, which was be inspired and inspire someone every day. So being inspired is kind of taking, learning, and then inspiring someone is giving back. So it's both. But you got to be able to do both, because you won't appreciate being inspired if you've never been inspired. How could you inspire someone else if you haven't inspired yourself yet? So it's kind of like, do it for yourself first, figure it out, and then inspire others in the process. So the world records and finding my purpose became one and the same. I love coaching and feeling like if I had a skill, I wanted to share it with others. But I really found myself when Scott Wilson passed away of ALS, and because then you're lost for a while. And he was a coach as well, and he knew that I would be a good coach and a good, tennis player. And so, it was that major loss of someone that believes in you to then reflect on what are you doing and why. And then the why becomes really important, because when you're trying to set records, you're sacrificing family time, sleep, eating snacks that you like, all these sacrifices and things. And why are you doing it? And so believe me, I just want to go to bed and sleep, but I'll do that after Saturday. So that's something I'm looking forward to. But it's also, Annie, the story I told about Annie making the high school team. And she had said, when I wrote about it in my blog, I didn't tell her I was going to write about it. I kept it anonymous, but I took a picture of her journal that I had asked her to write 100 times. I will make the high school tennis team. And she knew it was from a picture from her journal when she read the blog online. And she said, my coach just got even better, because I was so proud of her accomplishment, as if it was my own. But yet it was zero. I felt like it was nothing about me. It was about we, and more mainly about her. And I think it's kind of like the same thing is when I'm coaching someone, their goal becomes my purpose. Their goal becomes part of my purpose, so that all these things I do, I want people to, especially the athletes I coach, to, be inspired by it, borrow it. I've done some of the heavy lifting and some of the failures, learn from my failures. Don't make the same mistakes, start from where I am and take it to the next level, and you go. And I'll be, like the wind in your sails, and I'll be lifting you up when you feel weak and things like that, but I'm going to be there for you to support you in whatever way I can. And so that's the best way I could say it. It kind of came together with both, but it definitely came from something that my brother really articulated clearly to me that resonated with me. I'm not exactly sure if that was before our first world record, but I think it was. And so then it all became the same, setting world records, coaching athletes, inspiring others. And then it doesn't have to be sports, but I have really an affinity to sports. I think it's a way that people can learn and fail, and it's okay. You can let it lie. Your losses are not permanent. They're just stepping stones for your next win, and they're life lessons as well in the process.
So building on that, so when we talk about faith as well as we talk about that being more of an external confidence booster to some extent when you're seeking confidence in some manner outside of yourself. Did you have a moment when through this process of being a coach, and you could even say setting world records, maybe it was after your first one, when you said to yourself, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing? Was there a day when you reflected and said, you know what, this is my purpose in life. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. There's a reason I'm here.
That happened when we set the first world record, and we were sitting there for 14 hours and 31 minutes, and we stopped on purpose. And I said to myself, now I can't miss, because I had removed the word miss from my mental vocabulary. If you asked me that day what miss is, I couldn't tell you the meaning of it, because it wasn't going to happen. I didn't know what that was. And at that moment, I knew I was directly in line with my purpose, and I could sit here all day and not miss. And we did. It was nighttime, and we stopped at a minute past midnight. So that was when everything came together. My family was there to support me. My mom, my dad, my wife, my children. And it was just, a great thing. And that is that, it's kind of like, it's hard to explain, but when it happens. And it's kind of like when someone, in the Olympics, they win Olympic gold, like Mal Pugh, now Mallory Swanson, because she's married. I've been watching her since she was 16 years old, competing at a high level in soccer. She was one of my favorite players just because she was the young up-and-coming player. And she had wrote in sixth grade in her yearbook that she wanted to make compete in the Olympics and win a gold medal in soccer. And look at that. And she just had an Instagram post with that picture as well. But that the stories like that where it happens and these polar opposites happen. I've been here before. I knew I was going to break the record. I knew I was going to get gold, but I can't believe I got gold. So it's the disbelief and belief coinciding. And it's just an interesting feeling.
And what before you set the first world record and before you became a coach, what called you to it? What made you say, you know what, I don't want to do this 9-to-5 job anymore. I don't want to do marketing or SEO. And I know you and your brother were involved in a few things, right? I don't want to do any of that. I'm supposed to be coaching people here. What made you make that decision?
Well, it was more, I always took a leadership role in the sports that I was involved in. And when we won nationals in 95, I did a video. My good friend Steve was in it. It was really comical. We were in New Orleans, and we were we ended up becoming third or fourth in the country, and that was pretty good. But I remember always taking on a leadership role. I was always involved in coaching. It's just a matter of, was it a career path, a profession? Was it just part-time? Like, so it was always a part of me. It wasn't like, oh, let me ditch the 9 to 5 and do something else. It was always there. I got certified right out of college to coach tennis. I couldn't coach tennis during college because I was competing on the UConn's D1 tennis team. So I guess the moment that I could start coaching, I did. And my good friend, Mike Quicko, rest his soul, he encouraged me and my brother to get certified to coach professionally. And I'm thankful for that. You always have these signals and these guides. And so, there was a couple people guiding me. It was my best friend, Rob Oppenheim, and he was the best tennis player by far that I knew in Connecticut, New England growing up. And he was always number one. He was top 30 in the country when he played for D1 for Wisconsin. And, he believed in us. And when you have people that believe in you, it just reinforces your self-belief, which is mandatory. Others believing you is optional, but important. And so I would say it wasn't any one moment. It was more me doing it more and more of my time until it became full-time. And when it became full-time was when Todd Nicholson, rest his soul, he said to me, why don't you go into coaching full-time, and there was a director job open, and I, at the time, was a stay-at-home dad to my daughter, Maddie. And, I was going to be a dad and then the stay-at-home dad for the first time. And so I was doing a business networking group that inspired LinkedIn, I think. And so, great for LinkedIn. It was a very similar concept. And it was right before LinkedIn, I believe. And I was doing that. And then I said, you're right. If I could coach, then I could come and go when I have lessons, but then I could still be a stay-at-home dad. I could leave my work, so to speak, at the club and then focus on my daughter when I get home. And so it was a combination of someone, encouraging me, saying I could make something of it, that there was an opportunity, a job opportunity, but it was more me making the commitment or shift. So I would say it has a lot to do with having my first child and realizing that I wanted that time freedom to create my own schedule. And yeah, so, I mean, but think about it. If, let's say, I'm coaching 100 athletes, whether it's on the court or mental skills, now, Al, you have 100 bosses, right? You don't just have one boss. So, right, you have 100 bosses. But then I'm like, I love having 100 bosses. Why? Because I feel like with each one, we're in it together. Like, if they fail, I fail. I got it. What can I do to get them to reach their dream? And then it's awesome. Then it's like, great job, and what I try to say, because a friend of mine had said it to me and it really resonated with me, is, don't be proud of others, because that's nothing to do with you. That means it's your ego involved. Be happy for others. Encourage them to be proud of themselves. So, Al, when you win your first gold medal in, let's say your PPA or APP tournament, right? And you win gold. Yes, I have that feeling of being prideful, but no, I'm joyful. I'm happy that you achieved your goal. You should be proud of yourself. You being proud of yourself is mandatory at that point. It's optional for me to be proud of you. I mean, and it sounds good and it's endearing. And yes, you want to be proud of your family and your spouse and your children. So I'm not saying don't be proud, but I guess what I'm saying is, it's almost like you become the cheerleader for the athlete at one point. It's more like support system. I will do whatever you want, but if you're starting to take off and you don't need me anymore, that's okay. That is okay. That
Yeah.
is like, I cheer that person on, whatever. I'm ready to go at a moment's notice to do whatever it is. And sometimes, Al, it's just listening. Sometimes it's not giving advice. It's just being there to listen to their triumphs or their failures, and just, being whatever part of the process they need. And that's, I guess, what I mean. But I still, it's hard not for me to be proud of people that I work with and coach that do well. But at the same time, I would be happy for them. And I guess that's the where it all came from, is probably the birth of my first child, and a very good friend of mine who knew a lot about me encouraging me to spend more time in doing coaching.
To reiterate, just like being proud of your athletes and really pushing them to achieve whatever their dreams are, right? Doing everything you can to support their purpose and ultimately becoming yours. Something really cool to see this weekend at PPA Kansas CIty was the Johnsons. So Jorga and JW Johnson played an incredible match against Ben and Anna Leigh. So if you weren't able to watch it, goes to 5 games. It was awesome. Absolutely awesome. At the end of that match, the only thing that you saw on Julie Johnson's face, so Jorga and JW ended up losing, but the only thing that you saw on Julie Johnson's face after that match was a huge smile. And all she did was walk up to both of them and give them a massive hug and say, "You guys played absolutely incredible." So that tells you that there was no association to the outcome. If they got the gold, great. But the fact that they competed, they literally didn't count themselves out of a single point. They pushed Anna Leigh and Ben pretty much to end of every game. I would say the only thing that you could tell was that JW and Jorga had match point in a couple matches, and you could tell that they definitely had the tension and a little bit of pressure on themselves to close those matches out. And Ben and Anna Leigh, being in the position that they're in, where they've been in that position very often, they've won a lot, they understand what it is to win, worked their way back and actually won the series of 5, being down, I think it was game 3, being down 10-5. They came back and won it. So it may have been 9-5, but either way, they crawled all the way back to win that game. But you cannot discount in that period of time what Jorga and JW actually did. And the amount of patience that they had, the amount of adaptability. And what I mean by that is, like, they changed their strategy multiple times. They had an overall strategy that they wanted Ben to play a lot of the balls, but they consistently adapted. They won a bunch of hands battles. They were patient when necessary. They were moving Anna Leigh and Ben around. They were doing what they can to diffuse Anna Leigh. You really saw that as the strategy, limit the amount that she could actually attack. And they really did as much as they could right, but didn't get the outcome. But to summarize the point, Julie Johnson may have been the happiest mom I've ever seen at the end of that game, just because she knew both of her kids gave 100% effort in that match and never ruled themselves out of it. And to your point, that is, even though it's their mother, right? She's also their coach. She's also working with them day in and day out. So, like, she is working with them to achieve gold medals. So to also have that perspective of, like, you know what, it's not always about that. It is about the purpose of what these guys are actually doing and pushing a sport as a whole, right, on a whole new level. That is something to be truly proud of. Now, something that I said in there that I want you to comment on too is I recognized in PPA Kansas CIty that all the top players is what I'm describing as this ability to adapt. And what I mean by that is they change their strategies quickly depending on what is going on in the game. For example, in that same match, that Anna Leigh Ben versus Georgia JW, both of them changed strategies from fast for 3-4 points, meaning we're going to drive, we're going to crash, to okay, now we're going to slow it down and we're going to have longer dink rallies. We're not going to speed up the ball. We're going to press a little bit more out of the air, and then immediately switch back. So it's like you see this adaptability on both sides of like one team switches strategies, the other team adjusts. The other team switches strategies, the other team adjusts. Do you think that is more frequent at the top level because they all have the ability to play all styles of the game rather than, in the qualifiers or even in rec play, many players don't have both sides. It's either like, hey, I'm going to play slower and more patiently, or I'm going to play high risk, high reward, really bang and crash, shake and bake style pickleball. Do you think that that comes because they're playing at such a high level and everybody has the skill to play every single style?
Yeah, it's first fundamentals. So it's knowing the fundamentals to hit the ball, and we've talked about this before, I call it handwork, footwork, and mind work. And those are the three things. I mean, you don't have to worry about anything else. And when you play a sport, let's say pickleball, for the first time, and someone feeds or hits a ball to your right, you first use your mind to say, oh, the ball is way over to my right. And then you use your feet, your footwork. Oh, I have to move to the ball. And then once I arrive at the ball, then I use my handwork. So when you play, it's opposite from when you coach. So when you play, it is mind work, footwork, handwork in that order. But when you teach, when you coach, you start with handwork, because if you don't start with handwork, if you don't start with swing path, grip relaxation, then they could get the ball all they want. They won't know what to do with it when they arrive. So you start with handwork. That's why, in the first lesson, when you're starting with a beginner, you're not having them run. You don't want to think about footwork. So handwork first. Then once they master handwork, then it's footwork. Outside foot, loading, weight transfer. And then once they get that down, mind work is tactics and strategies. So then once you have all of them, so you have the right handwork to defend, be neutral, and attack. You have the right footwork to defend, be neutral, and attack. You have the right mind work to defend, be neutral, and attack. So once you master those 9 elements, then you're a pro. Then you've mastered the sport. And now it's ball recognition and shot selection. It's what ball is coming. What are the 4 elements that you can control and they can control? Speed, height, spin, direction. Okay, speed, height, spin, direction. Based on what they just did, what am I going to do? And where's my partner in the mix? And that's shot selection. And so that is going to change. And what you want to do is you want it, again, to be like clay, right? Like water, flowing water. You can't trap it. You can't contain it. You let it flow, but you just guide the path of the water. So then it's like, what is happening? And usually I say 1 shot is luck. 2 gets your attention. 3, they have that shot. You got to change your strategy.
So if understanding correctly, it is you can't really get to that point where you are now adjusting strategies on the fly if you don't, one, have the technical skill, the handwork that you talked about, And then 2, the footwork. And then 3 is when, okay, now you're diving not only into ball recognition, but also shot selection. So the mind work. Am I hitting the right shot? Am I putting the ball in the right place based off of what the other team's strategy is, right? Or what I
Yeah.
believe the other team's strategy is. So that, if that is correct, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because every person at that level has pretty much every single shot in their bag. Yes, some people might have a better inside out forehand or an inside in forehand than others and being able to hide stuff, but it's really that deception that plays into some of the strategy. And on the other half of the court, why people avoid it. So what I'm getting at is Anna Leigh Waters has one shot that is pretty much unstoppable on the women's side of the ball. I watched her do this over and over and over and over again in PPA Kansas CIty. At the kitchen line, she has a two-handed backhand. It's a roll, but with some pace, decent bit of pace, that she can close her body up and put the ball across the court, through the middle, or straight ahead down the line. You don't know where she's going with the ball because her body, even watching, because her body is in the same exact position every single time, and she could put into 3 locations. The amount of times that she has used that exact shot to win a point and pretty much either finished it there because she caught them off guard so much, or 2, had an easy setup because they were caught off guard, got a paddle on it. Now it's a high ball. She finishes the second one, or she's initiating 3, a hand battle where she has the higher ground, and in 2 or 3 shots, she's finishing the point. So, with all that being said, that deceptive half, huge piece of the strategy. It's hard to be deceptive, and I know this from my personal experience. It's hard to be deceptive when you're thinking about your technicals, right? When you're thinking about, okay, is my paddle in the right position? Is my grip the right way? Is it continental? Is it eastern? Is my footwork? Am I on balance? Like, is the wind coming left to right? Like, maybe you do that for a split second, but if you're thinking about all at the same time, how the hell am I going to say, you know what? I need to be deceptive on this next ball. You can't, right? It's just not going to happen. So, to Angelo's point, if you have that handwork and that footwork locked in, meaning you have enough technical skill to be confident in your ability, then from there, now you can start adding the other pieces of not only the mind work and the recognition, but also being deceptive or strategically smart. Because on the other side of the ball, what JW and Georgia did is they said, you know what? We know Anna Leigh is so deceptive with her two-handed backhand, even on the right side because she runs around it. We're not going to give her any balls. And although Ben is consistent, he's at least somewhat predictable. And that's kind of like Ben Johns' MO is like he's not trying to be overly deceptive, but he's going to hit every single ball that you give him. Right? So that was their choosing between the 2 number 1s in the world, right? It was like, okay, am I taking Ben Johns or Anna Leigh? Anna Leigh is more of a threat because we can't predict what she's doing. So we're going to go with the predictive guy. And that's really what they did. And it kept them, they went to 5 games, right? They went to 5 games with Ben and Anna Leigh. And if I'm being honest with you, I felt JW and Georgia should have won it. 2 of the games they were ahead by 5 or more points. And Ben and Anna Leigh have just been in that position so many times that they know what to do in those scenarios. They won from behind a gazillion times. They won ahead from a gazillion times, and they have the reps there to be consistent, right? Like I said with Ben Johns' MO, and they crawled their way back. You felt the momentum swing. You felt that they weren't tense. They were relaxed. They've been there before. They were ready to go. And it swung in their favor. Now, something that Anna Leigh was doing that I want to talk about as like a, hey, you're in that moment, you're behind, you're trying to work yourself back into the game. She has this verbal cue where she's like, fight, Anna Leigh, fight. Want it, right?
Yep.
You've probably seen that. You probably had it. Why is she doing that?
Well, that works for her.
Yeah.
I actually commented on one of, a post I saw, when she played Salome, is she says fight a lot, but, she may change that. You know, it's not a fight, because a fight, you defeat the enemy. It's that you're grateful for the opponent because they're making you better and bringing the best out of you. So it's more like a dance. It's a competition, but it's not a fight. So, but if that's what gets her fired up, like when her match finished after midnight when she played against Salome at that time, and so maybe it's like she's getting tired or whatever, and then it's rain delays, and so fight, gets. What I've noticed with her is she needs a vibe of energy. She is all about the energy, right? She needs to find her energy. And if using the word fight, does it for her, that's awesome. Usually I stay away from the fight, flight, or freeze, mentality, but more compete. So I like the phrase compete. Come on, Anna Leigh, compete, rather than fight, because fight it's abrasive. It's like, what if you're playing against your absolute best friend? What if you're playing against your mom or dad, your sister, your brother? Are you going to fight?
So I think I would definitely say the atmosphere is different, but I think that there is always application of treating games as if they are competition day for practice purposes. But I would say that with my mother and my father, and even if my grandmother is out there, I'm probably not yelling fight in her face as I smash an overhead at her feet.
Well, I know Michael Jordan, it's always the siblings, right? Serena had Venus, the older sister. Michael Jordan had his older brother, and they beat up on their sibling, and then their idol is their older sibling. And usually that's the way it is. I think Colin and Ben, it was opposite. Ben is younger, but anyways, that there's nothing wrong with that. You have to find what mantra works for you. It clearly works for ALW. It's come on. It's like, come on, wake up, get into it, compete. Let's go right now. That sort of vibe, mentality, mindset right here, reminding you it's right here. And the other thing that it does psychologically, I think, for the opponent, because I've been in situations where I've been on the opposite side of that, is, well, wait a second. If this is their point to fight for, to win, to earn, to compete, then it's not mine. You don't want to concede it to them. It is what it is. You stay focused. And what I realize, because a lot of players I coach, they say, right now, this point. And I say, you can't focus on the point. The point might require you to hit 20 shots. You can't focus on 20 different shots at the same time. So it becomes future thinking. It becomes paralyzing. It's right now, this moment, this shot. That's what you can control as best you can, is, putting 100% effort. You mentioned that before with the Johnsons. It's, the mom is proud because they put 100% effort in. They couldn't give any more effort, and that the outcome was what it was, and that's okay. And you couldn't tell the difference, like you said, with the smiles and the hugs. You could not tell the difference between the winners and the losers. And that's what you want. You want to be able to put a match, put the volume off, and not know who won. And then you look at the body language, and if it is the same, then good on you. But if your emotion is too negative or too positive, then you got to realize this is a long haul, and I could be joyful, but that's okay. It is what it is. The outcome was what it was.
So talking about playing with emotion on the other side of the court, and this was a question that I was going to have for you, is Jorga Johnson after points is super, I'm going to use the word emotional, but emotional where she roars, right? So she literally finishes a point and she's roaring out there, which is the complete opposite of JW, right? JW has a similar Ben vibe where calm, cool, and collective, minimum words, maybe gives a head nod after a great point, and that's about it. Now, Georgia's out there fist pumping, roaring. She is honestly electric to watch, right? I think she brings so much fun to the sport of pickleball. However, you could tell she plays with a lot of emotion, right? But we've talked about there being some negatives to that often, but it seems like she is excelling in that environment. Why do you think that is?
So I used to be like that. When I played tennis, D1 tennis at UConn, if I won a big point, the entire campus knew it. So, and it's a very big campus for those of you that have been to UConn. And I just was like, it came out. But then what I realized over time is, if you look at the way Roger Federer, when he was in his prime, it was just smooth, calm, cool, collected. He would hit, amazing shots, and just, it was more like matter of fact. Like, that's just part of what I do. I mean, that's what I do.
Mm.
How could I get so overly excited about just what I do on a daily, day in, day out basis? But what I did notice is he used more fist pumps in tie breaks when there was a definitive ending in sight. He was more emotional. Come on, more come-ons and fist pumps. But what I'm realizing with that, and Ivan Lendl, when he's coaching Andy Murray, said the same thing. You have the confidence to know that, yeah, that's you. That's not a surprise. That's how well you can play. And there's no surprise there. There's no overly, come on, like, I can't believe it. No, believe it. That's you. But it's how you handle it. It's how you react to it, how the opponents react, how your partner reacts to that. I say, be yourself, be genuine as best you can. And with my brother now, when we play tournaments, if in a gold medal match, if a fist pump comes out for me, I hit that, ATP by Colin last summer, and I did that fist pump. I don't know. It just came out. I don't know. Sorry, Colin. Which one, Colin Johns? No, just kidding. But, so it's, it's like, it's fun, it's like, that just came out. It wasn't contrived.
So really what you're getting at, and I definitely resonate with this myself, because I've tried to find what tactics really work for me on the court that not only keep me present, but also keep me, I'll say, fired up a little bit, like involved in the game. We talked about the state of arousal, like what allows me to have my optimal state of arousal when I am competing. And I think that was a huge narrative. The reason that I also asked the question is because you see two halves of the coin. You see Anna Leigh being very vocal, having that mantra on both sides of the ball, behind and ahead. Now, she does change tactics, right? If she is ahead, she's also roaring. If she is behind, she's coaching herself through it, telling her to fight. The question that I have for you for each individual player is, it really just finding what emotionally you feel in your chest gets you revved up or present or back into the match. Because for me, I will tell you, if I'm analyzing it from a fight standpoint and am using fight, the reason that I brought that up is because it hits me more in the chest, because I'm thinking about fight, fawn, or freeze. And I'm like, I'm not going to fawn. I'm not going to freeze here. All I can do is fight. And for whatever reason, that sits with me. Right. So is it really you as an athlete finding what hits you in the chest or slaps you in the face that says, I need to be ready to go, I need to get back in this match? Because those words are going to vary person to person, right? When you speak to everybody, even about emotional topics, there's certain words that you stumble over that hit you emotionally, right? Is it finding that? Is the player kind of, would you say, play around with that, try different things, see what works, and then take note on that?
Well, remember, you can't have an emotion and a thought at the same time. So the fight, too much energy, too much emotion, then you're not
Yeah.
100% focused. But if you're such a good athlete or so much better than the competition, then you might be able to get away with that. And then the fawn, or some people call flight, is giving up, running away from the pressure. And then the final one is deer in headlights. You don't know what to do. Paralysis by analysis, right? So, there's no good or bad. Again, it goes back to the individual athlete, doubling down on when are you in flow state? When everything is going your way. For me, it's not that fight. For me, it's that the ball is huge, the court is huge, everything is in slow motion. I'm the only one in fast motion. That I have so much time. I know exactly what shot to hit at the right time. If it's basketball, the ball is not touching the rim. It's a swish every time. I remember I was playing a basketball game at college, and the first half, I made every single one of my shots, and none of them touched the rim. They all were all net, and then of course one air ball that the opponents laughed at. But then that got me fired up to continue scoring the second half. Anyways, but it's that. So then you write down The Art of Learning, Josh Waitzkin, a great book, and it's documenting your flow state. So if your flow state, the best you have ever played, you're at peace with yourself, you're purposefully thinking, purposefully driven, what is that like? Write it down and double down on that. And for every athlete, that is going to be different, or maybe different. And then discover it for yourself, document it, and then repeat it. And whatever it might be. I think it's you get more emotion, you push yourself more, maybe when you're not feeling it. But when you're feeling it, it shouldn't be forced. It's just, it is whatever it is. Whatever your first instinct or reaction is whatever it is.
Is there something to be said about that emotion driving adrenaline and assisting adrenaline kicking in so that you are more focused, right? You are thinking honestly less, because we all, as athletes, we all know those moments when adrenaline kicks in. Usually it's after you just get your ass kicked. So in hockey, for me, it was like you're coming down the boards, you get absolutely bamboozled into them, and you get up, your adrenaline's going, and now you're you're ready to rock, right?
Yeah.
So is there something to be said about that emotional state driving an adrenaline response?
Yeah. I would say, and I know we have a couple more minutes, but I would
Yeah.
just say, or end by saying that it reminds me of the difference between caffeine and alertness,
Okay.
and the right food and energy. So there's a difference between being alert and being energetic. So coffee, right? Caffeine doesn't give you more energy, even though a lot of people think it does. It gives you more alertness. So what you're describing, it just reminds me of that. Adrenaline is more like caffeine. It's you can't have adrenaline for the long haul.
Mm,
That is like dopamine addiction. It's okay for one point maybe, but just like the difference between aspiration and inspiration, inspiration could be short-lived, but when you aspire to be a better human being and you have purpose-driven goals, you know, ultimately that's where you want your inspiration to lead you, right? So adrenaline is kind of like you're not where you want to be with your energy level, but it's not something that I would anchor yourself on. It's more because it reminds me of forcing it to happen and not letting it happen. You want to just let it happen.
yeah, and to that point, you could probably see, like, going back to Georgia and Anna Leigh Waters, is totally a short-term fix for both of them to either stay in the point or get back into the point, right? You could tell that they are using it to rev themselves up, but they're not using it on every single point, maybe a lot of points, but not every single one. And as Angelo just noted, trying to maintain that for years and years and years and years, and that is the way that you operate, is not only one, exhausting, is not sustainable. Like, what's going to get you out of bed every single morning, as we talked about, is that purpose that you have, right? Going back to exactly what Angelo talked at the very beginning, with world records, with coaching, it's the purpose that he has, and then creating, his players' purposes to become his. And then beyond that, it is not only having belief in yourself, but having faith that you're on the right path, that you're moving in the direction that you're supposed to be moving in. So, a big thing that Angelo talked about that is a great summary is that, and this is something that I've actually used myself, so I'll tell you exactly what I use, is I say it's a plan, not a Bible. And the reason that I say that is because it gives you direction. It is totally not exactly what you need to do, and it's not exactly what's going to happen. So as Angelo just talked about, he did a little coaching on the side, and it morphed into the career that he has today. But if he didn't allow that to happen, if he didn't allow the plan to just take form, he may have missed that. And I think a lot of people do that by having this understanding. Let's use 9 to 5 for a simple example. You need to have a 9 to 5 job. You need to pad your 401k, retire at 65. Well, if you're in that building every single day with the same people, there is so much opportunity that you are missing out on in every other direction. Like, imagine being in a building all day long, 5, 6 days a week, and maybe going out and socializing once on the weekends. The amount of opportunity that you have is cut to one day. So with that being said, what's going to carry you through every single day is having that belief in yourself, having that. I think that's huge. So, Ange, do you have anything else that you want to close on? I know that was a big thing, but I tried to summarize everything. I tried to really summarize everything that you said there so that somebody has a takeaway at the end of the day. As a reminder, this Saturday, August 17th, at Pickleball America, Guinness World Record, the Rossetti brothers are going to be setting it. They'll be starting roughly around noon, right? It will be anywhere between 2 to 3 hours, but we have plenty of stuff going on beforehand, plenty of stuff going on during, stuff happening after. Rossetti brothers will be around. Come on down to Pickleball America. Have a great time. And if you can't make it, the entire world record is for Save the Children. You can donate at rallyforcharity.org. That will be in the show notes. Whatever you can afford, donate. If you can't donate and you just want to come and hang out and experience the event, you're more than welcome. So we're excited to see you there. Ange, I'll let you go. Have a good one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.